want to do it, and there's no... I think there... Well, good evening, everyone. I'd like to call the meeting to order. This is a regular meeting of the Council of the Township of Montclair. Notice of this meeting has been provided to the local media and also been posted on the bulletin board in the municipal building. Roll call, please.
Mayor Jackson.
Present.
Deputy Mayor McMahon. Here. Councilor Baskerville.
Present.
Councilor Hurlock.
Present.
Councilor Russo.
Present.
Councilor Schlager.
Here.
Councilor Spiller.
Present. Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Councilor Baskerville.
Yes. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
This evening, I'm very excited to have a proclamation thanking Marcia Almeida for her service to the Montclair community. Marcia, if you'd be so kind as to join me at the podium, and if you have family or other friends that would like to stand with you, then I'd like for you to come here. Marcia has been providing service in Montclair in so many ways, and most recently, for the last 20 years plus, she's been serving on the Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee, and she's been the chairperson of the Parks and Recreation Committee for most of that time, among so many other things. Marcia and I got to know each other very well when we had Hurricane Sandy, and I remember many of us were here upstairs. We were planning and trying to figure out what we were going to do, and when I looked up, Marcia bought plates of food here, and that was my first connection with her, and which has been a wonderful friendship ever since. Come on up and stand up here. How are you? Whereas Marcia Almeida has been a resident of Montclair since 1970 and has been making a positive impact on the community ever since. Her legacy is apparent in the causes she's championed, including working with the public schools, developing programming that supports the township's youth, and most recently, supporting Montclair's park and recreation initiatives. And whereas Marcia Almeida's service and demonstrated commitment to Montclair students started soon after she earned her bachelor's degree in psychology from Montclair State University in 1982. She served on the PTA for over 15 years, including a leadership role as president from 1988 to 1989. During her tenure on the PTA from 1986 to 1987, she was also the home school liaison for one of Montclair's elementary schools. And whereas Ms. Almeida's commitment to protecting the township's young members is also evident in her role as co-founder and later president and secretary for the Montclair Community Intervention Alliance. Operating through a federal grant, the MCIA advises the Township Council and distributes funds to community organizations that promote substance abuse prevention. Initiatives have included First Night, DARE, Side Door, and after-school programs. And whereas Ms. Almeida currently focuses her efforts on ensuring that Montclair's parks remain beautiful and supporting recreation programming to ensure that residents can enjoy Montclair at its best. A member of the Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee for 20 years. She's recently served as co-chair, as I mentioned. She's been a large part of the conversation about establishing a skate park and has supported other initiatives, including a community demonstration garden, May in Montclair, and planting flowers so that in the springtime, Montclair is full of color. And Ms. Almeida has also been recognized for her decades-long commitment to the Montclair community. In 2018, she was awarded a Lifetime Achievement Award from the Northeast Coalition for Outstanding Community Activism. And Ms. Almeida has said she was raised to believe that when you care about something, you must show it with your actions. Because of her dedication to public service, she's become a pillar in the Montclair community and continues to demonstrate her dedication to the township. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the mayor and the Township Council of Montclair do hereby thank you, Marcia, and we express our sincere appreciation for your continued service to our township. God bless you, and you are so appreciated. And so in honor of this celebration of Marcia, we have some goodies on the table there, and you guys can go over and help yourself. Deirdre's gonna help you. And so, yeah, have a little toast to Marcia, and we appreciate all of you too. We haven't been able to get to everyone, but actually what happened is my birthday is tomorrow, and Juliet called me, and Juliet said, hey, you know, every time a council member has a birthday, she'll get a cake. So she said, so what do you want for your birthday? And I said, I couldn't think of anything nicer than to honor Marcia. She just recently had a birthday too. So today is about Marcia, and we'll get to all of you, and we appreciate you all as well. Love you.
Hi, good evening. This is a very nice surprise. I wasn't expecting this. Otherwise, I would have prepared a long speech. But I must tell you that my ancestors are very happy about this. So they recognize that what they told me, I have put into actions. My grandmother was a believer that if you care about a community, you should show it by working. If you care about a cause, you should be there so you can opinionate. And I had tried to follow the footsteps, and I had told my kids that are here, the same thing, to get involved in the community. And I didn't realize I've been doing so much for Montclair. I have been underpaid all this year. Thank you very much.
Congratulations, Marcia. Thank you, Dr. Bashville. We have a proclamation for National School Counseling Week. Is anybody here for that proclamation? Then I will move it. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We also have been presented the minutes of January 6, 2030. Are there any additions or corrections to those? I'll move them.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Before we have public comment, I'm just going to have a short statement to read regarding our 2020 budget. The 2020 budget for the township will be officially introduced for the council's consideration next month. I am pleased to report that the budget will include a 0 increase in the municipal tax rate. As you may recall, the township achieved a 0 increase in 2019 as well. These back-to-back 0 tax increases are the first in township history. and I want to make sure that this milestone is noted. Here's a little bit more context. In the 15 years prior to this council, the average annual tax increase was 5%. The eight budgets delivered by this council average a little more than 1% annual increases. During the same period, average residential property values have increased nearly 24%, moving from $507,000 to $627,000, while municipal taxes increased less than 10%. The bottom line is that the municipal tax rate dropped by 11.4% since 2012. It's also no secret that debt reduction has been at the forefront of council initiatives. In 2012, when this council took office, the township was saddled with $223 million in debt and a pedestrian AA- credit rating. Our financial discipline and vigilance paid off in 2016 when our credit rating was increased to AAA, the highest rating possible. Montclair joined the ranks of the top 5% of New Jersey municipalities with this distinction. The 2020 budget will continue the momentum, and debt will be reduced to approximately $163 million, a staggering $60 million or 27% reduction from our 2012 balance. I hasten to add that we weren't standing still while reducing debt. A ton of projects were completed and investments made simultaneously. We'll go into more detail next month, but a modernized municipal fleet, 60-plus miles of paving and curbing, miles of utility main replacement, and park renovations are all completed. While kudos are due to the entire council and all of our staff, I wish to commend in particular our financial consultant, Robert Beneke, CFO, Pamaja Rao, Deputy Township Manager, Brian Scanterbury, Township Manager, Timothy Stafford, and Deputy Mayor McMahon and Councilor Herlock, who serve on the financial committee with me. I want to thank them for their tireless efforts. So I want to congratulate the council and all of our staff, Mr. Stafford and your team. It's quite an accomplishment. I think it should be noted, although it's very little noted in our media, but I think the public should know what a good job this group has done. Thank you.
And thank you for your leadership.
All right, no problem.
Mayor,
that makes it
I would just like to add something. So everybody knows from the perspective I have of maybe 20 years, I've never seen this kind of stability in our economic and financial status. Now, one thing that I want to make note of, which has happened under this administration, I credit the manager for this, is that we have contracts, the current one we're going to work on adopting tonight with AFSCME, with the a union that represents a lot of our employees, and we've done this with a couple of others, I think, Manager, it's phenomenal to have lengthy 5-6-year contracts. That's what we're having. We're setting the model for the state because employees want stability. They need security. These are middle-income working families that have these unions representing them. I've been a union member all my life, CWA and AFT, and Sean Spiller with the NJA. We know how important it is. So to negotiate with our unions a long contract that gives stability to the town government beyond any of us being here even, and gives stability to the employees and its stability to the taxpayers, that's one of the things that's part of this whole positive financial report. So I want to tell you, Mayor, that that's a great achievement too. Thank you.
Okay. Public comment. We'll be happy to hear from members of the audience. Please try to limit your comments to 3 minutes.
My name is Jose German. I am the founder and CEO of the Northeast Earth Coalition. I'm here tonight to invite all of you to our 5th Acting Locally for a More Sustainable World Conference. This event is positioning Montclair as the capital of environmentalism on Saturday. It's the largest gathering for environmental activism in New Jersey and New York metro area, one of the biggest ones. More than 60 organizations are coming in town, and we have wonderful speakers: Jeff Titter, Executive Director of New Jersey Sierra Club; Jennifer Coffey, Executive Director of Association of New Jersey Environmental Commission. She will be the second speaker. An international known poet, environmentalist, and farming activist, considered one of the most powerful African American voices in the United States, Naima Pennyman. She will be also speaking in the afternoon. But most important than that is U.S. Congresswoman Mickey Sharon will be opening the conference. She is the new chair of the Environmental Commission in the U.S. Congress, and she accepted the invitation, and she will be addressing the audience on Saturday. The mayor will be also in the program opening, the welcoming all the organization and groups, and Dr. Rene Baskerville will be also in the program. I encourage you to go to the conference and meet neighbors, constituents, and other community groups from all around Jersey. Even Philadelphia, we have people from Philadelphia, we have people from South Jersey, New Central Jersey, even New York. So this is a huge event, and outside of the conference, we will have a fleet of electric cars, and they will be for display also to enhance the program. And we have many organizations in renewable energy participating in the program. So thank you, and I hope to see you on Saturday. We will be open at 10 a.m., and we are finishing the event at 4:30. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Happy
Good
New
evening.
Year,
Happy New Year.
2020. My name's Ahava Felicidad. Is this on? Or am I just not talking loud enough?
The green button, yeah.
It's on.
Mm-hmm.
There's a green light on there.
Yeah, that's good.
Go! So, green light is go. I'm here tonight on behalf of the Tenants Organization of Montclair. You'll hear from us monthly, and sometimes more often than that. We were here in December, we were here in November, we were here in October, all of 2019. We will continue to come to the council meetings in order to garner support for and have our rent control ordinance established here in our beautiful township of Montclair. There are many of us here tonight. There are many of us who are not here tonight. As many of us who can come to the meetings in any given month will be here. My main questions, I'm not usually the one to ask a lot of questions here. The main question is, where is the committee that we were promised would be formed in the October 2019 council meeting? Where's the committee to work on Montclair's rent control ordinance?
I can speak to that. I think we formed the committee, right? And I think they're working, as they've been continuing to work. The committee members can speak for themselves, but I know we formed the committee.
Okay, so you have formed a committee? Yes. So what has that committee been doing?
That's awkward. I'm not on it, so I can't speak to what I believe. What's being done is looking at municipal ordinances, other townships' ordinances, and reviewing those and seeing what's appropriate for, what might be appropriate for Montclair. I believe that's the activity that's going on.
So who's on this committee? Who is on
Can the
this committee? Is this
town
on?
attorney, can the town attorney give us any updates on what he's been doing? Because we've asked him to do some research.
Well, is the
I'm-
town
I'm
attorney
one of the
on
people
the
that's
committee?
To answer your question, I'm one of the people on the committee, and the mayor's accurate. I don't have anything to add from when the last time that you were here, and I was just going to let any of the other committee members have an opportunity to speak. So we've been communicating with our attorney. We've been looking at different municipalities that have rent control. I guess most recently, the one that we are looking at and is the one from Bloomfield. And Councilman Russo has been very helpful with that and discussing with neighboring townships that have rent control. But I don't have anything to add from when the last time that you were here. Councilman Russo, do you have anything that you'd like to add?
Yeah, I'd just like to, that's why I've asked the town attorney, because I've been pushing for him to give us some specifics. I had, a year ago, even before your group was formed, I had a student, great student at Montclair State do some research on all the surrounding towns, and he gave me a great memo. As students go, I teach at Montclair State, and I know how this happens. They go on to other things. He graduated, he's going to get his master's, he's not around, but he did a research project which included the ordinances that exist in East Orange, West Orange, Verona, Bloomfield. Now, the Bloomfield and Verona ordinances I've already passed on to council members and shown them what I thought was good. I think I sent some of those things to some of you at TOOM. My concern was, are they really the best? Montclair might be able to come up with something better if we move forward with this. So I would like to take what's good from others, but I wanted to ask the town attorney again what he's come up with, because I'm not an attorney. I'm not sure how these ordinances got to where they are, but in Verona and Bloomfield, this is what I keep repeating to people.
Counselor.
Is that in Verona? Can I just
Counselor.
finish my point? In Verona and Bloomfield, I've talked at length to council members who say that their ordinances have worked, that their Bloomfield and Verona ordinances, which are rent control ordinances, that have various good provisions and some which might be weak, that they say those have worked. So that's the extent of my research, is Bloomfield, Verona, and the surrounding towns. But my student is gone, and he's not available to help anymore.
You want to tell them about
Are you on the committee?
Yes.
You spoke. Are you on this committee? We have formed a committee. Are you on the committee?
Look, I work as an individual council member with my colleagues. We're sort of a committee of the whole. We think this is an issue that the whole council should make a decision on. But I've been working with Councilman Baskerville and Councilman Spiller primarily, because in Councilman Spiller's ward are the most apartments and most tenants, and Councilor Baskerville's taken a leading role in this from the beginning. But this is my report to you from me, not a committee report, from me as to what I've found, and I want to know from our town attorney again what he has found, because part of what we did as a group is ask him to do some research. So can you tell us anything, Ira?
Of course. Let me address this. First of all, Councilor Russo is correct, and several council people, and it would be, I don't want to name them all, but basically have asked me to look into rent control, to see what might work for Montclair, to look at surrounding towns. We have done that. We've pulled the ordinances from Bloomfield, Caldwell, Maplewood, Clifton, Verona as examples. One thing that I think, I'm not going to take issue with it, but I think to refine it, you have to realize it's not a matter of a better ordinance. It's a matter of finding a form of rent control or an ordinance that fits the situation in this town. We don't have tons of apartments at $400 a month, which you're trying to preserve. We have a different level, a different set of affordable units, and basically, we don't necessarily have the same issues that some of those other towns do, because we have a bit of a runaway market.
And I agree. We would not
So-
suggest those towns.
So, my point is that right now, we need data. And seriously, we need to know what's going on, what the rent increases are. We've gotten some anecdotal data from various tenants, you folks coming up here and speaking and telling us 25%, 30%. But essentially, we need data to work with, because in order to shape something, or try to shape something, and by the way, just doing my job, I report to the council. After that, there are many other factors that would go into the whole process. But I'm very familiar with rent control laws. We've also spoken to outside people, attorneys who are both tenant-oriented. I don't really, I haven't spoken to landlord-oriented attorneys, but I know what the landlord issues are as well, because to deal with rent control, you have to understand a balanced approach. So in any case, we need your help. Come with data, come with information, and in the meantime, I'm putting together the pieces on this end so I can advise the council properly. And I can tell you that there are many council people, not just members of this committee, who are interested in this issue. But they need something to work with. They don't, this isn't, they need it to come from us, and I need stuff to come from you.
Okay, so now that we have an idea that there is a hole and a lot of people interested, and it's that from Dr. Baskerville that she's on the committee, are you on the committee?
Me? No, I work for the council.
And since we are being asked now, today, with the answer to this question, to provide you with data, specifically tenants' rent increases, because we know from the beginning that we're not talking about $400 and $500 rent, and that's what we've also said. We are talking about $1,500 becoming $2,300, $2,300 becoming $3,200, $1,600 becoming $2,000. We know that. So if you're not on the committee, who are we then meeting with to provide the now requested data? I brought my planner with me. I'm a Generation Xer that keeps a paper planner and a digital one. So I have my schedule. My best days are Mondays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays for meetings. We can schedule a meeting tonight with the members of the tenants organization leadership and your committee when we know who those members are, as well as with Mr. William Scott. We're ready to do that tonight.
Well, I'm available, but as far as the council people go, you'll have to speak for their own schedules.
Well, Mr. Mayor, and I'll speak to this. While not on that committee, I will note this. I think that information, any information you have, you certainly can send to me. I'll tell you what I've been doing myself. First, I've been meeting with a number of individuals with knowledge in this area, including Joan Pransky and others, to give background on the different types of rent control and seeing what's going on. So her and I have met and exchanged information. I've asked Mr. Stafford to provide me rent control samples from all the surrounding towns, which he has done, and been reviewing those to see what the differences are and how those come forward. I've asked Mr. Stafford for census data and other information to help guide what that looks like in those pieces. I've asked Mr. Karasik to look at the legal ramifications of anything we may put forward and provide information. Certainly, as my colleagues share information, I've been one to look at that as well. So from my perspective, again, while not on that subcommittee, but while trying to gather as much information, make an informed decision on my own, that's what I've been working on to make sure that we have a Montclair-specific version that works for us, but also takes into account what's worked elsewhere, and also making sure I'm educated on the subject enough to make an informed decision when any information is provided to me. So if there's specific other information, and Mr. Karasik gathers it as well, he absolutely shares it with the full council, and I'm sure all of us are using that data in our own way, but that's the way I have been using it and researching this issue, and certainly want to make sure I'm well prepared when we're ready to move forward.
So if this is supposed to be a committee that operates then as a whole, I'm trying to understand why I or we would be sending you something if you're not on the committee, when we're supposed to be working with the committee as a whole, but one person has announced being a part of the actual committee. I'm really trying to understand that. Can you help me understand that?
So, I don't know if you recall, but when you were here a while ago, and we asked for volunteers to be on this committee, I said I would be happy to be on the committee, and I shared with you some of the actions that I was going to do and have been. And I mentioned to you at that time Joan Pransky, who's done a lot of work here. I mentioned Ira, and I mentioned what I was going to be doing. At that point in time, when we left here, just so you'll know, I didn't hear, I'm not clear about who all is on this committee that you're talking about, but I know when
That's
you're
the
asked-
question, who's on
Right.
the committee?
So I just want to let you know, because if I had information, I would share. So when the question was asked at that time, I said I would be on that committee, and I'm not clear about anyone else that is on a committee at this point in time. I think because, I understand what I'm doing. I've been in communication with Councilman Russo, who's been really going and looking at a lot of things and bringing information to all of us. I feel comfortable, and Councilman Spiller, but I feel comfortable that the group is working, but it's in terms of you sitting here and trying to hold to task a committee per se, I recall that I was the only one that raised my hand at that meeting. So if there is now a larger group, then we need to try to, figure out who they are and work together. But that's
Yes,
not
I
what I
agree.
saw, and I volunteered.
Yes.
And I still am continuing to do this, to get information. The problem at this point in time is that you're asking good questions and you want information, I guess, but because of the time of things and because the information that we need is just not readily available, I just don't have anything to add. If I had any more information, or even if you said, we're ready to meet now, I would be happy to meet, but I don't know what the purpose of that would be until we could get, unless you have some information, some data for us, that would be helpful. Otherwise, until we can get the data and the information that we would need to try to make an informed decision about what the best way to do this is, I don't know, what would be helpful. But, I've been asking to meet. I'll be happy to meet if you think that it would serve a purpose. But I just want to let you know, where I am at this point in time. And I don't have, data that might be helpful at this point in time, although I am going to continue to try to get it.
So having heard an actual request from Mr. Karasik, right?
Yes.
Now we know as of tonight, there's a request for data. There's a request for the information on rents specifically. Then we need to know, you need names, buildings. We have these things. We weren't asked for it because we hadn't been told that there was an actual committee formed. And as I stand here tonight, I still don't hear that there's a committee, or like the definition that I know of a committee is not what I'm hearing here. I'm not hearing a collective whole. I'm hearing pieces. We would like for you all to bring this together. So you're working together on what I know a committee to be, what I hope others would know a committee to be. I've been on several in my
Look, as far,
30 years of work in research, financial administration, advertising, marketing, hair, real estate, and other things. I know what committees are. And our committees didn't work in this way, what I'm hearing. So what I would like to hear on behalf of the Tenants Organization of Montclair is that the committee is formed, and you can say, I'm on the committee, I'm on the committee, I'm on the committee, I'm on the committee. These people are on a committee working together. And then we can meet the members of the TOOM Leadership Tenants Organization of Montclair and provide you with what you're requesting, everything that we can provide that you're requesting, and whatever we do not have that you're requesting that is necessary, we will get that to you so that we can have rent control in Montclair. There are people with serious issues and fires happening in their homes that need to stay here. They're not all here, but we are here to speak for them. the committee has to be formed. One person does not make a committee. 3 people going in different directions for one goal don't make a committee. A committee comes together, people are assigned different tasks that they do, it's delegated, you come back together, and you have answers for us. This is a serious issue here in this town. Very. I know that you understand that.
Yeah.
I'm going to end now, because once you form this committee and you let us know who is on it, and we can go forward with then us meeting with you and providing you with the things that you need. The ordinances that you are looking at are not what we are even looking at for what the tenants want or need for Montclair. It's great that that's happening, yes, but it needs to happen together, and then you bring us in when you've looked at the together. But you guys have to do that first, because you're the ultimate on the votes for having the ordinance. Already, it's done. Who's a part of the committee? Because it is already done. Who's a part of the committee? And I'm done with that, and the next person can go.
So the question keeps being asked, who's a part of the committee? And just so everyone will know, we may never have a committee according to her definition. I just want everybody to know here that we have learned how to work very well together, and that whatever decisions we make will be a collaborative. Everyone here will have one, and I'm not really clear about, this whole idea of a committee. We have subcommittees, we have representation. If you want to have a meeting, and I've been trying, and you're right, we do need to work together. I've been asking since the beginning, and you know this, I've been asking to come and meet with you so that we would be on the same page, and so that I would have some idea, the things that you guys are working on. I think we have all established that this is extremely important to all of us, and we do want to, work together, and we will work together. Now, how we get that done, if you don't like the way we're working, then I say, let's come to the table, give us a chance, and I assure you that we are going to work together very well, and that we're taking this very, very seriously. Now, about a committee, we may or may not have a committee in your eyes, but I certainly know we'll have representation. I have stepped out and said that I will try to come to meetings. I've tried to come to your meetings before, and I wasn't welcome, so I'm glad now that we're at the point in time where I'm being invited to come to the meetings, and I'll make sure the rest of the council knows that, and if other people are available and choose to do so, then they will also.
If I could just clarify something, I'm going to be willing to work on this committee till the time we get this resolved. So it's a passion of mine, it's an interest. I was a tenant in Bloomfield, I was a tenant here in Montclair. I've been a tenant and active in tenant organizations in Bloomfield and Montclair. In fact, when I had a condo in Montclair originally, Joyce Goldman and I formed a group called Montclair CAN, which was called the Montclair Condominium Association Network. 10 or 20 years ago, I think it was. Condos couldn't get their garbage picked up. Condo residents had a problem, and the state passed a law through pressure, but our group was called Montclair CAN. So I admire and respect your group, Tenants Organization of Montclair. I was in the Tenants Organization when I lived in Bloomfield. I'll work with Councilor Baskerville. Our committees don't have to, we can't, first of all, have more than 3 people meeting as a subcommittee. That's one rule you understand, because that would be a majority. But I'll work with Councilor Baskerville in a partnership. And if Councilor Schlager, I've just talked to, maybe would serve on it. But the key to this is working with our town attorney and working with our existing housing commission people and landlord-tenant board people. But I will work with Councilor Baskerville to meet with you and do whatever I can. I just have a passion, as my colleagues know about this, because I was a tenant, I was a member of tenant organizations, and I've seen what many of you have gone through, and I want to help get this done in the new year. So now that we have a new year, let's start off fresh and try to get these things. We do need data, we need information, we need to know exactly what is happening, what people need. And I'm very much supportive, as you know, of what you want, but I have to justify it, and we have to get something done as a group. It's the entire council that has to get it done, not a committee.
Hi, Tony Martin, 41 North Fullerton Avenue.
Good evening.
Vice President of the Tenants Organization of Montclair. Okay, so we all know what we're talking about here. We're talking about urgent problem needing work right now. We just need to get to work, all of us. You ask for data. We have data. You know, you heard Mitch Kahn of our parent organization, New Jersey Tenants Organization. He came here. He told you about trends. He told you about history. He gave you some comparative information. I know that your own people, Deirdre Malloy, for example, is an expert on this, knows very much about ordinances and requirements and history of rent control measures in various communities. May I point out, by the way, that Verona, yes, it has lovely wording in its ordinance. However, when the tenants groups tried to fight against wholesale decontrol of units and imposition of fees, they discovered through Oprah requests that Verona's Rent Control Commission had not met in 6 years, that rent control was being administered by a secretary in the, so all I'm saying is we've done our homework, people. We will work with you if you are ready to get to the nitty-gritty of making this work for Montclair. Yeah, Montclair has special needs, but Montclair is not special in that the urgent need requires remedy, which is what happens. That's how you get rent control. People come here every month. They tell you, you know, literally, you know, stuff is happening that's very serious. And I mean, you know, you stand in line at the grocery store, and the person next to you is saying, yeah, got to move out of Montclair, can't afford my rent anymore, yeah, new landlord, whatever, you know. It's happening. So please, help us. Another point I just want to make, I started talking about this last month, I'll keep talking about it. It's not just the level of rent, it's housing enforcement, which a rent control commission, if you have all of the landlords registering their properties, and then you have a commission approving rent increases when the landlords are taking proper care of their properties, you won't have situations like we continually have in my aging building. Elevator doesn't work half the time. Not half the time, I exaggerate, but you know, I'm passionate. We had, over the holidays, Bob knows I contacted him about this. Polyurethane fumes, just smoking people out of our building because they're renovating like 14 apartments right now, because when they renovate the apartments, they raise the rent 50%. Urgent. We need a commission that oversees, that has staff. We need a beefed up housing code enforcement. We need a lot. We are renters, we are citizens. We deserve you to stand up for us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Council. My name is James Powell. I have been a resident of Montclair for about 10 years. But I live in Newark now, so I'm hoping to give sort of an insider-outsider perspective on the rent control discussion. And actually, I was up at Starbucks up in Upper Montclair when I found out on Facebook that there was this thing tonight for rent control, so I drove down. So I was already up here. I also am familiar with Joan Pransky. I've worked with her personally, as well as with rent control in Newark, and you know, she advocated in front of the Supreme Court in the Orange case many years ago. Now, my personal involvement in Newark was I was on the committee that got rent control updated in Newark in 2014. I opposed the rollback of the rent control protections that went in front of Newark City Council in the intervening years. I was one of the group that got the ballot initiative in front of Newark City Council to get those provisions put back, those tenant protections put back in 2018. Ballot initiative, as you know, you get signatures, it's forced on the ballot. In our particular case, the City Council adopted the measures. I was also invited by the Mayor of Newark to sit on the Right to Counsel statute that passed last year. I'm not sure you're familiar with that, but for low-income residents, an attorney provided in eviction cases. I've also been appointed by the Mayor of Newark to sit on the Rent Control Board in Newark. There's 5 members. There's a tenant rep, a couple tenant reps, a couple landlord reps, and a homeowner rep. I'm one of the tenant representatives. And I know you've mentioned you're looking at all these different statutes. Obviously, Newark's a different city than Montclair, but really, at heart, the issues are exactly the same. No big difference. Just what I've heard, just to address some of the comments before, it seems like maybe you're getting bogged down, or maybe there's this thing about what committee, or we're going to look at all the laws, and your constituents aren't going to like it if they find out, a year later that there's dithering, and we did this study, and we had to compare, and we had to come up with the best one. As you know, the perfect is often the enemy of the good, so, don't delay. But also, talk to your residents. I'm kind of surprised that, there was a committee, but they didn't even know that you guys had met or not met or whatever. So maybe better communication. Seems like you've already addressed that. I've also worked with NJTO. They're kind of people that seems like they've already been here. I know Mitch and Matt to provide information. But also you can go, if you want information, go down to Rutgers University. There's a public policy group down there led by David Trout. He's a professor at the law school, and he's very involved in these eviction and gentrification issues. Also, Paula Franzese is a lawyer, law professor at Seton Hall Law School down in Newark. She's also very involved in them, so they can get you the data. In general, rent control is a great idea. It works to establish stability, as you know, in Montclair, and I'm familiar with coming back up here all the time. There's a lot of people getting pushed out. They don't like it, and it's scary, and especially the older people, people that are on a fixed income. So rent control will help ameliorate that. It doesn't prevent landlords from making a profit, as you know. It doesn't replace the free market. You're going to hear all these kind of wacky arguments. There's always provisions in case of hardships or tax increases, et cetera. But it's basically just to prevent, this kind of large-scale disruption of the population that we're starting to see in Montclair, and people are kind of, justifiably freaking out about. It's mainly about stability, and I know the councilman mentioned stability several times, especially with middle-class families, and that's what it's all about. Besides living in Newark and Montclair, I lived in Bloomfield for 20 years, so I know rent control is this big scary word. People hear it in our area and they're like, what? The communists are coming, they're taking away all our profits. It's not really true, but there is back pressure. In Newark, for example, landlords got together, formed a commission, hired a consultancy group to come up with a white paper, saying how terrible it would be and how nobody would rent in Newark anymore. All of it, none of it came true. So, there are going to be arguments against, but I think once you get into it, it seems like there's some attorneys, they know that there are protections, and it's not like tenants are taking away money from landlords, or tenants are being allowed to stay even if they don't pay the rent. That, of course, doesn't happen. As we put it down in Newark, we want good tenants and we want good landlords, and rent control actually helps bring both of those things happen. So yes, there's going to be some back pressure, but, talk to everyone. So again, just to sum up, just the idea that it's providing a break on runaway displacement, and I think you'll find that Montclair will be a much better town with it. Thank you.
James, before you leave, I have a question. I grew up in Newark, lived there 27 years.
Yeah, so.
You said you heard there's a rent meeting. This is our regular council meeting.
Right.
I've done this, I teach government at Montclair State, so I get very touchy about these things. This is our regular council meeting every
Yes.
2 weeks.
Yes.
We're having a lot of business, as the mayor told you, about our financial status. We've got a lot of good things that we can tell our residents.
Yes.
What I want to be able to do is protect everybody, tenants as well as taxpayers, who are doing good under our leadership because they're not going to get an increase in their taxes. But I want to protect tenants who are getting very high increases in their rents. So I'm in favor of rent control.
Right.
This has to be the right format. Now, in terms of Bloomfield, which I also lived in, I told you,
Right.
their ordinance is the one I keep talking about with my colleagues. And I've talked to the mayor, Mayor Bloomfield's talked to the Mayor Jackson, and I've talked to the Mayor Bloomfield.
Yeah.
We want to make sure these things are working in these towns. As Tony just told us, there really is a flaw in Verona. It may have a nice ordinance on paper, but Verona doesn't even have meetings of their rent
Right.
committee. You mentioned something in Newark I have to ask you about. You said in 2014 there was an ordinance. Was that an ordinance passed to take back rent control, or you had They
yeah.
increased rent control in 2014.
Sure, just briefly, there had been an ordinance for decades in
Yeah, I knew
Newark, but
that.
it had
There
not
was
been,
always an
it had not been changed or updated, so the amounts, the increases were dollar amounts, and it hadn't been updated for decades. They were way out of line. So in 2014, the ordinance was updated with new amounts. And then some of those protections were, like I said, taken back. The big one was vacancy decontrol. It allowed, which incentivizes landlords to be bad landlords, draw back on services, people get out, or they hassle people, they get out, and then they can just jack up the rent because there's that provision. So that was one of the things that got taken away, and then the people in Newark said, no, we want that, we don't want.
And when you say updating, there's always this issue, we don't want to just pick a number out of a hat, like
Yeah.
1%, 2%, 3%, 5%.
Right.
There's a question here of what percentage or the figure or the formula,
Right.
say formula to be used, because
Right.
rent control scares people because the word control is there. I say it's rent stabilization.
Right.
Let's get it stable. Let's have people be stable. Tenants need to be stable, just like taxes.
Sure.
For taxpayers need to be stable. Property taxes are stable in Montclair because of Mayor Jackson and our leadership. We want to have rents to be stable.
Right.
So stabilization is a good word to use, but Mitch, who came here a while ago, said stabilization, control, it's all the same thing in New Jersey.
More or
Other
less,
states
yeah.
it might differ. In Newark, one last question then. You have a rent control board and you're on it. You said there's 5 members.
Right.
Do they vote on each individual? Say there's a real hardship for a landlord.
Yes.
We want to make this flexible enough
Yes.
that if there's a landlord that really needs to do something because he's got or she's got to really make an investment, there's a way that you can take account of that need, that hardship?
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, there's like 4 major areas where landlords can come before the board as well as tenants. They all come before the same board. In these cases, one, if there's a tax hardship, one, if they substantially rehabilitate a building. There's 2 more I can't remember off the top of my head. But we hear the cases, they bring them in front of us monthly, and there have been several cases where the landlord says, look, I took this derelict building, fixed it all up. They come and show us the pictures, they show us the receipts. They say, I want to be able to raise the rent, more because it had been, artificially too low, if I may say. That does happen. And we said, you've done your job. It's by the ordinance. Yes, you can be allowed your rent increase more than the typical yearly increase.
That's all I wanted to know. Because Bloomfield, the mayor tells me it has that provision.
Right,
So
yes.
there's something, Bloomfield's the
Yes.
model I'm trying to use and maybe improve upon it.
Yes.
But that's, Newark, if you could be around to be of some help to us at some point in the future,
Well,
be
I'll
happy
in
to.
touch. Yeah. Hardship was one of the other 4 that I mentioned. If there's a hardship, they're allowed to come before, and they say, I'm not making money. And again, the idea isn't that we're preventing landlords from making money. We want that. Of course, we're in this capitalist system that we're in. That's a good thing. So if they do prove a hardship, then yes, you can get an increase higher than the amount. And in our case, the amount is tied to the consumer price index for the New York, New Jersey area. So it's a fixed amount that everyone knows, and we backdated 3 months, so there is this stability. People know what the rent increase is going to be.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Lily Quee. I'm an English teacher in Montclair, and I've lived here for a year and a half. I've been renting my current apartment since April of last year. Recently, the building I live in has changed ownership, and while I don't know as of today whether or how much my rent will rise this April, I know that a significant increase would force me to move out of my building and possibly Montclair. When I accepted my current teaching position, I knew that I wanted to live in Montclair. I heard about the amazing community you have here, and I haven't been disappointed. I finally feel like I have a place that I want to call home. It's been especially gratifying to be able to teach in the town where I live. As a resident, I have a personal stake in seeing my students grow into adult members of this community. And rent control would allow me and people like me, teachers, people who work in this community, to continue to contribute to it and to continue to make a life here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. William Scott, co-chair of the Montclair Housing Commission. Well, this is a great conversation because obviously we started that conversation at the Universal Rent Control Forum back April of 2019.
Yep.
Obviously, this has been a conversation that's been going on in the Township of Montclair for over 20 plus years. It's not about we will be able to come up with a rent control ordinance that fits the needs of the Township of Montclair. There's only 8 or 10 basic components of a rent control ordinance that we have to take into consideration. So this is not rocket science. You know, the gentleman that just sat down talked about your annual increases, your coverage, your hardship, your vacancy control, your compliance, your parking requirements. This is not difficult. We will write an ordinance that fits the needs of Montclair. And I think that we should not get caught or stuck on that issue. There's 4 wards in the Township of Montclair. Every single ward has renters in these wards. There will be input from the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th ward of this township from a renter standpoint. When you've got 40% of the residents of Montclair, we're going to get a lot of input. We can get some data. That's not a problem. Matter of fact, when they mentioned Mr. Tropp's name from Rucker, he's a resident of Montclair. He sat on a rent control forum we had in this town about 10 years ago. So I'm sure we can turn to some expertise in these fields to get the data that's necessary to support the requirement in the Township of Montclair. The thing that's unfortunate about the residents that we've been seeing coming up, they've been giving their heartfelt personal experiences. That's data. That's very important information. We don't want to just look at numbers. We want to understand what's going on when increases go from 10, 20, 30, 40%, how it affects individuals. We've had firemen come up here. We've had policemen come up here. We've had teachers come up here. That is affecting a very large population in the Township of Montclair. So, I can give you a basic summary of the components that are necessary for an ordinance, if someone would like to take that information, and then we can go from there. Okay?
Mr. Scott, as the chairperson of our Montclair Housing Commission.
Co-chair.
Ms. Deirdre Malloy. I apologize because we have 2 outstanding chairs. That's something I know that we've talked about occasionally. So that's something as a group that is charged with making a recommendation to our council that you guys can feel free to do. Certainly certainly I've been trying to be a part of that discussion both with your group and with the tenants group. And so if you're saying that that's, relatively easy and you're ready to go, then let's do that. I mean, I agree. I think we all agree this is something that is urgent. And I don't think we in any way are trying to act like it's not urgent. This is an urgent matter. We don't have, time to let more and more residents leave before. So when is our next meeting? The Housing Commission meeting, because that would be a wonderful recommendation for us to make as a group. And then since I'm going to be the liaison and Councilman Russo will probably come at that time.
Okay.
And then we can share that with the full council.
Absolutely. Our next Housing Commission meeting is tomorrow.
Okay.
Our Housing Commission meetings are the
Thursday?
third Wednesday
Wednesday.
of the month. The third,
That's right,
fourth,
that's right.
excuse me, the fourth Wednesday of every month, okay? And, we advertise our agenda, so, and we, it's even posted on the town's website when we have our Housing Commission meeting.
Okay.
And absolutely, we have this and have had this on the agenda for the last 8 to 10 months. Okay, so, we are looking at it from a monitoring standpoint. We will provide a resource to the Township of Montclair Tenants Organization, which we continue to do. But, as I mentioned, we just don't want to get caught up on, we want to do what Bloomfield is doing, Verona's doing. We're going to write an ordinance that's specific to Montclair.
Okay, so why don't we start working on that? And
Okay.
I'm looking forward
Okay.
to it as I have, and I'll continue to be a part of the discussion as I was one of the people that in April the 11th, organized that meeting. So I'm looking forward to that. So that I think is a good place for us to
Exactly.
continue to work from.
And even before April 11th, you were involved in that whole conversation. So,
Absolutely.
So we've been hard at work at this for a number of years. Okay, thank
Yeah.
you.
And I thank you, and I thank the tenants organization for now welcoming us to the table. I appreciate it. So, yeah, this is great, and I agree with you. This can't wait.
Hello, everyone. Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Gerard Cope. I've been a resident of Montclair for 8 years. I've worked in Montclair for a decade and a half, and I chose to move to this town and to this community because it was very attractive to me, and it was one of the best choices I ever made. But someone else made a choice recently that's affecting me, and my landlord chose to raise my rent by $150, 10%. You know, I could still pay it, but we're starting to get down to the skin of the teeth. I'm not the only one. And I don't live at 3941 Fullerton. So do most of the people seated behind me. I can tell you a couple dozen stories of my neighbors, friends from town, people I work for, and other business owners that we network with that can tell you the same story, that their landlord chose to beat them over the head, despite what the mayor mentioned, 8 years, great track record, very low property tax increases, despite property tax values rising precipitously. But why are we getting beat over the head like this? And why hasn't the council acted yet? Why are only, as far as I know, 2 of the council members strongly in support of this ordinance? There's other choices that have been made, and there's other choices that can be made, right? So we can choose to forsake the racial diversity in this town. It's no secret that over the last 20 years, nearly 30% of our black brothers and sisters in the black community in this town have left, that have been here for generations. Standard bearers that made part of what made this town what it was. Hallmarks in the community. We can choose to forsake socioeconomic diversity, young people, creative types. People that want to age in place.
We want you to age in place.
We can choose to forsake community-minded people.
Yeah.
Right. But these are the choices that have been made by inaction. We can choose to allow the Essex County Courthouse to handle an increasing number of rent disputes from this town by inaction. We can choose to replace the character, color, and context of this community. Replace it with something more bland. We can choose to replace what made this town attractive and great and inspiring for the people that have come here in the last 20 years in the first place. Or what we can choose, the choice that I'm offering you tonight, is to work with us, the tenants organization, to bring about an ordinance for rent control. The time is now. The data, like Mr. Scott said, I'm so happy that he said that. The data is what we're telling you. So many people have come here and told you their personal stories, and I've been here month after month telling you this. Do I need to bring my lease with me? I know you believe me, right? So we really are asking that you start making a different choice to the members of the council that so far don't support this. Get with Ms. Baskerville. Take turns on that committee. Find out. Learn about the people, nearly half of this town, that are on the razor's edge right now. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, council members.
Good
My name
evening.
is Deirdre Malloy. I'm the co-chair of the Montclair Housing Commission and the chairperson of the Landlord Tenant Housing Committee. What I had intended on speaking about has already been discussed. It's pretty redundant. What I have in front of me is the New Jersey Department of Community Affairs Division of Codes and Standards Landlord Tenant Information Services Rent Control Survey.
Standards, I'm sorry. Division of whose standards?
Department of Community Affairs, Division of Codes and Standards.
codes.
Yes.
Thank you, I'm
Mhm.
sorry. Codes.
I'm going to give this to the clerk, but it has all of the rent control municipalities here. Whether, it's old. As you heard, the City of Newark has made some adjustments, and several others probably have, but it has the municipality, the contact information, the rent control board number, the maximum amount they go up, whether it's 5% or less, whether it's based off of CPI, Consumer Price Index, whether or not they have vacancy decontrol, and those kinds of things. But it sounds like you have access to a good bit of data. As Mr. Scott mentioned, the Housing Commission and Ms. Baskerville can confirm, as she has been looking at this for years. And I don't know how many years ago this matter has come up before the council. Perhaps you were not on council at that time, but the data is there. We will, as a Housing Commission, kind of bring together what we have so that it's just succinct and maybe can support what you already have. If there's something else that we can do to help out, that'd be great, but the gentleman here, I can't remember his name, from the City of Newark, as well as Mr. Scott, really identified the very few categories that need to garner a solid rent control ordinance, and it's just a matter of tweaking it based off of what Montclair needs or what the majority want. I have spoken to several landlords. As I reported before, there are just under 6,000 rental units in town. I think it's 5,965 or something like that. And one of the owners owns a good chunk of that, said that they would not oppose a 4%, for example, as a rent stabilization. So it's just a matter of making it work. Mr. Karasik can probably help along with Mitch Kahn, but we're here to support you and hopefully make this municipality a better place to maintain retention for those of us who want to live here. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Well, believe it or not, William Scott, I'm also a member of the Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee. So, you know, I have a couple of dual roles in this township there. But we'd like to present Councilwoman Baswell with a bouquet of flowers for her support of Parks and Rec. Okay. I think, wait a minute, just a... Councilwoman Baswell got me involved in Parks and Rec, starting with the Friends of Canterbury and Nishwayne Park. I think it was over 15, 16 years ago. I've lost track of time.
20 years.
But absolutely a staunch supporter of open space within the township. She's at 99.9% of the Parks and Rec Committee meetings over that period of time. And, you know, the parks in this town speak for themselves. There's been a lot of improvement. This council has supported our parks with those improvements. So, you know, I think we're going to continue having some of the best parks in Montclair. I started out being a representative for Nishwayne Park. I think I'll start a little controversy. I think Nishwayne is one of the best parks in the township of Montclair, but that's my personal opinion. Thank you. Okay. But we'd like to present you with these flowers at this point in time.
Thank you so very much. I appreciate it.
And happy birthday, too, right?
Thank you.
Thank you for your never-ending message.
Thank you so much.
Sir?
You got me.
My first council meeting, not so sure of the protocols. My name is Emmanuel Goldman. I live at 27 Mulford Lane in Montclair, and I've been a resident of Montclair since 2001. My children were born while I was living in Montclair, and they are in the public school system. I know you have many weighty matters to consider, and maybe this isn't such a big matter to you, but it's become a big matter to me. What I am asking, and I sent an email to all of you, and Dr. Baskerville was kind enough to reply. I don't know if the rest of you read the email or not, so I'm going to read much of the contents of that email to get it on the public record. I'm asking you to consider placing a question on the ballot in the next municipal election. You don't have to take any action. Let the voters decide. This would be a referendum on a township school district matter. Now, you may wonder, why am I here instead of at a Board of Ed meeting? I have gone to quite a few Board of Ed meetings and have brought the matter up that I'm about to describe a number of times. I've gotten some sympathetic words, but no action. The member of the board who recently resigned, Mirren, actually took the trouble to meet with me this past summer and was sympathetic, but she's not even there anymore now. So I've gotten nowhere, and I think a referendum is the way to go. Our children are being harmed by the Montclair School District schedules of starting all middle schools at 7:50 a.m. and the high school at 8 a.m. There is an enormous body of research on school start times, and the universal conclusion is that early start times harm children. And in my email, I gave you a reference to a summary from the National Sleep Foundation. The American Academy of Pediatrics takes the position that no schools should start earlier than 8:30 a.m. And again, in my email, I gave you references to that. The U.S. Centers for Disease Control also takes the position that the earliest start time should be no earlier than 8:30 a.m. And this is not some fringe lunatic idea that I am putting forth for you here. This is the mainstream medical establishment has made the position clear, and we are in violation of that mainstream wisdom. The American Academy of Pediatrics publicized this position as far back as 2014, almost 6 years ago. Further, recent research indicates that these start times not only endanger our children, but they endanger the community. Because there has been a finding that early start times for school may contribute to delinquency and substance abuse issues among adolescents. Think about that for a second. Every day during the academic year that passes continues this insidious abuse of our children. While this may not seem like a large matter, the harm to our children could be characterized by the expression death by 1,000 cuts, which is defined by Wikipedia as the way a major change can be accepted as the norm if it happens slowly, through unnoticeable increments of change. The change could otherwise be regarded as objectionable if it took place in a single step or a short period. Little by little, day by day, our children are incrementally harmed by this abusive schedule. And I want to add that most of the parents I have spoken to, not all, but most, agree with me about this. And I actually, in desperation, started a change.org petition that has been online for a few months now and has already close to 200 signatures. I haven't sent you the link to that, but I can if anybody is interested. The township should protect our children from harm and change school start times to no earlier than 8:30 a.m. Now, that's something the council may not be willing to do, so therefore I am suggesting a referendum. Let the voters decide. Here is a potential wording as a first draft. Quote, "The residents of Montclair hereby resolve that public school start times shall begin no earlier than 8:30 a.m. following the directive of the American Academy of Pediatrics and the U.S. Centers for Disease Control. We direct the Board of Education to implement this change as quickly as possible. I want to add something that I did not mention in my letter. This has become very personal for me. My son graduated Hillside last spring and is now attending Glenfield. In Hillside, the start times are 9:10 a.m. At Glenfield, the start times are 7:50 a.m.
That's right.
My son did make the adjustment of going to bed earlier than he had been, and he is getting the requisite 9 to 10 hours of sleep a night, but he's still dragging his feet, and his grades have plummeted. He was at the top at Hillside. He was getting, I don't know if you know the scoring system, 3 means meets expectations, 4 means exceeds expectations. He was getting 4s in everything. He took the Park exam. He was in the top tier of the verbal and at the border of the top tier for the mathematics. In Glenfield, he's getting, his best grades have been B. He's getting C's, D's, and F's. He is dropping off a cliff. What has changed? The boy hasn't changed. Still the same boy, still the same intelligence. What's changed is these early morning hours. Now, I looked into trying to get him to a school with later hours. There are none in Montclair. They all start 7:50 a.m. Even the pricey Montclair Kimberly Academy starts at 7:50 a.m., so there's no option there. Verona actually starts at 8:30 a.m., and I started to look into that, but my son absolutely refused because all his friends, he's grown up with them through elementary school, all of his friends are continuing with at Glenfield, and he doesn't want to leave them. So I'm left with trying to seek public action on this. I don't know if action can happen in time to save him before he leaves the Montclair school systems, but I hope it will, at least if the voters decide. I've got a daughter behind him who's now in 4th grade, and she's going to be facing the same issues a couple of years from now. So again, I'm not asking that much. I'm asking for putting it on the ballot. And I'm going on and on. I actually talked to the town clerk about putting it on the ballot and was told to consult a private attorney. I've not been able to get information about how many signatures I would need and how to get this to happen. Therefore, I'm coming to you.
Mr. Grassi?
Mr. Goldman, I've had 4 kids go through the system. I sympathize with you. However, the way the laws in New Jersey work, the school system is completely independent and subject to a whole different set of laws than the municipality. The municipal council has absolutely no say over the operation of the school district, either the hours or the staff or whatnot. So those are things that are strictly within the purview of the Board of Education and the superintendent. And they have their own restrictions under state law, which I'm not so familiar with, but I am familiar with what this council can do. And unfortunately, the council can't do anything on this issue. And consequently, since it's not something that the council can legislate about, there's no way it can't go on the ballot. In other words, the council can't adopt an ordinance or ask that an ordinance be put on the ballot or any other type of action. So it's, I sympathize with you, but there's absolutely nothing this body can do.
What about as a non-binding public question to put on the ballot? By the way, I neglected to mention, the state, in case you don't know, the state of New Jersey has started a pilot program with 5 districts in the high school level starting at 8:30.
This is the Department of Education, which oversees all the school districts in the state. We can't put it on as a non-binding public question because it's not a subject. The subject matter is something that the council can't legislate about. So consequently, it's not something the council can put on the ballot. So, as I say, I sympathize with you. I don't like getting up early, but
if I were able to get the information I need to get the signatures and get it put on the ballot that way, would that work?
Well, no, because it's not, it's the subject matter. Let's put it this way, you should get your own attorney and get your own advice. But in my view, the subject matter isn't something that we can that can go on the ballot because it doesn't, It's not within the jurisdiction of the township. But I don't want to, I shouldn't discourage you. You should go find an attorney and see what they have to say. But I do know that this council can't do anything to help.
Mr. Goldman, I just want to say, as an AFT, that's American Federation of Teachers leader, New Jersey, I know that we had, I believe I might be incorrect, but Senator Cody, who's not our senator now, but he's our neighboring senator, used to be representing Montclair, he put a bill in, or he's been advocating that we have a later start time. Now, I might be incorrect on this, but I suggest you call Senator Cody's office and see what he's doing, because it should be something more on a state level, statewide level. And I'm very sympathetic to this, and as AFT, I think we've looked at this, and, no teachers want to come in that early anyway, so, we're not looking at it from the teacher's point of view. From the student's point of view, it's not healthy, I don't think. But Senator Cody, I know, has been dealing with this issue. So, Richard Cody, you know who he is.
Yeah.
If you could reach out to him and see what he has to say, you can tell him that Councilman Bob Russo sent you.
That'll do it.
Councilor Spiller?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
Mr. Goldman, first and foremost, I want to say, how sorry I am, and I'm sure we are, to hear about that with, your son. It's a challenging situation. As a high school science teacher myself, I know that that is sometimes difficult for students to adjust. You are absolutely correct. That early start time is such a difficult thing. You often see in your earlier period classes, students who are just struggling to engage in certain ways that you see after, certain hour, they are much more responsive. So it's certainly a challenge. It's one that there's been a lot of support from educators to have that shift. As you noted, which I was going to share with you if you hadn't known, as you noted, there is a statewide initiative to form a pilot program, which has been expanded, I might note, to really see if there can be a greater engagement of schools to do this. As Mr. Karasik noted, that law is through the school districts, because that's where that does have to come through. But it also is designed to hopefully have groups of school districts participate, because it is a broader discussion. In addition to the fact of early start times and the consequences that has, we also know that there's tremendous value, of course, in students participating in extracurricular activities, sports activities after school, having one school start at a different time than other schools, and the ability to interact with those. There's a lot to that, right? So part of that pilot program work that is being put forward from the state is trying to really incentivize districts as groups to kind of come together and make a switch to try it out. That way allowing students to still participate in many of those areas, but also getting the benefit of a later start time. As my colleague noted, I think everyone has looked at the data, and everyone is pretty clear that, look, there needs to be a change. This should happen. How do you make that happen in a system that, quite frankly, is so embedded in a design of extracurricular starting at such and such a time? And we all know it now, even with those early start times, we have students going nonstop from the minute school ends with this practice, this event, that event, still not getting home until pretty late, then trying to do homework, then trying to repeat. There's also a challenge of, if you're starting later, are you going to be able to fit in a lot of those things students want to do? It's a broad discussion, not lost on anyone, that it needs to be addressed in some way. And I think, as noted, though, the state is trying to do their part to try to make that happen. Again, was expanded. We were supportive of it, and educators certainly are as well. It's navigating that space, but just wanted to share that as well.
I appreciate your comments. Did Montclair apply to be in the pilot program?
I don't know.
One thing I might add, Mr. Goldman, is as a night owl and the father, two of my three children are also night owls, so we always had trouble getting them off to school. One problem particularly unique to Montclair is the busing. And, the 750 and the 910, it gets the bus company two routes.
Right.
That is a big thing. So we have a lot of kids we have to move around town, and we do it essentially in two shifts. So changing that would be a big issue as well. I do appreciate your plight, though, and I understand it.
Aware of these things, they all come up, but the health of our children should come first.
Yes.
We have to
Thank
work
you.
around and make everything else work around it. The health comes first.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you for hearing me out.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you for coming. Hello. How are you?
All right. I am glad that I have this opportunity today to speak about the rental control, because it's affecting me in such a big way.
Can you state your name for the record, please?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, my name is Alain Fayeux,
Hello.
and I live at 11 Seymour Street, in Montclair. That street where we're going to have no access for whole months because of construction. So I am summoned by my landlord to get the hell out, urgent. They want to throw me out. I won't even be able to like bring a truck to take my stuff if I have to leave. We have a slope there that we still don't know who it belongs to. If it's the township or the building next door, it's extremely dangerous. If you go over there right now, you won't be able to make it up. We have a lady who is 95 years old, she's trying to get into the parking lot. I'm 65 pretty soon, and I have to go around the mulberry bush to get to my vehicle. There should be, that's apart from the whole thing that I want to talk to you about here, but we need to have steps to get into that parking lot. And thank you for coming over there to check the rat situation. I saw one the other day again. It ran between my legs.
The rat?
Big animal. Right?
The rat?
So these people have the guts to raise us so much money, so much rent. When I moved in 2012, it was $1,050. Actually, it was $1,100, but I was told, try to bargain, if you can. And I did, and I got it. I got my rent down to $1,050. Now it's $1,628. Next month it will be like way over into the 1700s. I live by myself. I'm not retired yet. I am at a crossroad in my life where should I get my retirement money as quick as possible, just so I can have some money coming in. But when you work, when you're retired, you receive your pension from the Social Security, you cannot make more than $17,000 a year. I still have like a lot of things to pay for, loans. I went to school, took care. I just finished paying my daughter's loans for university. So that's why I am in this place right now, just being a good guy. And to I don't have to remind you that I already said that last time. Mr. Robert Rousseau knows me very well. Mrs. Bescoville, I cherish very much, also knows me very well. They know what I've done for this town. I've been devoted to making it more beautiful, every corner I could. But now it's kind of strange that I am invited to get the hell out. Because those heartless people, and they are absolutely ruthless. Last month they threw a black family downstairs, very nice people. Throw them out, they didn't even have a chance to retrieve any belongings in their place. Sheriff was there, no getting in. Their mattresses, all their furniture was still inside there. And then it's an inside job. They all like share. Okay, you need a table. You need this. Because it's like a mafia. They own 275 buildings. They own at least 3 that I know in this town. So I am right there in that place. I have a lot to say because I am bombarded by noise, by things going on for the Wellmont Theater. Who is that going to benefit? If I was in a good place, I could say me. But it's just insane what's going on right now. We can't get into the street. We have this noise here, like before 7 o'clock in the morning. They used to work until 3:30 in the afternoon. Now it's 5:30. I don't know if they are trying to get this thing done as fast as possible. They work very well, those people, but it's just that we're cornered. And the neighbors, Mary across the street, who moved into that building, recently she said, what's going on over here? In my building about 3 months ago, there was an older couple, an older black couple. They sold a house and they just don't want to be in the center of town. That we heard so much about this town of Montclair. And then I stopped seeing them. I stopped seeing packages being delivered. And I said, what the heck is going on? Well, they moved right out because of the abuse, or certainly I didn't have a chance to speak to them. But since, in this year only, at least 10 families have moved out of my building. And they keep replacing them with young people. They don't know what's going on. They come from Brooklyn. They have like maybe better wages than we do. But we're being like kicked out. And you said thank you for inviting us to be part of our what's going on over here. Of course you're invited. Please, be part of it. You know, you're people like we are, you know. And God bless you for having the positions you have, and these are certain positions of power for now, which are going to affect us in a very big way. And we invite everyone's heart here to speak up and just be there for us. And I was just thinking, you know, while I was hearing all of this before, you know, what if we had no ordinances in nearby towns? Is this a good enough reason not to do anything in this town? Do we have to really okay, it's okay to inspire ourselves from what they have done? If it's working, if it's not working, Montclair is special, we know that. But I'm reading an interesting book right now, Genghis Khan. I don't know if you've ever heard of him, probably did. He transformed society to the point that he has changed our lives. We are who we are because of that Mongol guy. If you don't know about this, maybe you want to research. But what they came up with, he didn't mess around. In his 40, 50 years of being an emperor, he changed the entire society. Why can't we do this at our own little level? I mean, why can't we show the world? Since I've been in this town over 25 years, all I hear is that Montclair is the light of the country, that this is the most mixed, diverse society in the country. I didn't dream that, I read it. So we need to continue seeing all of us here, you know, from all backgrounds, savoir-faire, experiences, to be able to stay here and contribute. I feel proud that I was able to, in my own way, to contribute the way I have in this town, and it would make me cry. And I'm a big man, I'm solid, and you know, I fight. That I would have to live in a different town which doesn't meet my needs of the multicultural that we have over here. So I'm hoping I make it. I don't know what I'm going to tell the judge when I go over there. I cannot rob a bank for this. I don't know what to do. I am in a really rough position, and I'm hoping it's not the last time I see you. But I'm just inviting every one of you to just take a hard look at our situation. So, but if I'm still around, I would still support her. But these people here are amazing, you know.
You will be around.
Excuse me?
You will be around.
Well, thank you. I'm hoping so, but it's scary, you know. It's really, really scary.
So I just just to make sure that you all know, and that everyone else in the room knows, having seen this for the first time today, having knowledge of this from many other residents who I can't tell you their names. They don't want that known, other than the fact that it's public record, because you can search it on the court records when they lose their apartments. You have to search for it, or you're in court when it's happening, our Montclair residents. Alan's been given resources, so we do also then, we have resources we can leave. So it's like, oh, what's Toon doing? We are going to provide resources, but then we have to know. So then when we know, we can provide the resource so that tenants can then reach out, and if they need money for back due rent or something's happened, like all these things happen, it's paying for college, paying your daughter's college, and the rent goes up. So basically, his rent in 2012 was $1,050 upon $50 reduced negotiation. Now it's $1,628, and there's an increase coming again. That's 55% from the start to now. If you average that out, it's 9.18% approximately to the 2 decimals. I'm a product of the Montclair public school system. I'm not a mathematician, but I've worked in positions where you're flying out of there if you don't zero that budget down, $5 million budgets for government and academia. That's 9% more every year. So that's not even a 2% every year, 3% every year. That's not how that math is done on this, but it's so that you have that full picture, so everyone in the room also understands that percentage over those years. But every year, it could have been 10% one year, 12% another, 5% another, 25% another, but his total over this time, it should not be that high. It shouldn't have gone up in this way. And then he had to keep figuring this out. Emergencies happen, things come up, bills are being paid, work could slow down. With the cap on the rent, this would not be an issue. it would be a non-issue for this man who has built the things we're talking about. He's actually built sidewalks and done landscaping and beautified our township, and everything he says about Montclair is right. Well, let's continue to prove people right about who we are and keep what's people here in their homes that belong here that have had to leave, because a lot of people are still trying to get back in. I know someone right now, she's working, she can't be here, that's one someone, there are a lot of someones, but she's not here now because she is working more, because she fought to get back into Montclair, because she was born and raised here, loves our schools, regardless of all the other things that are happening, where there are negatives. There are so many more positives where people still want to move into Montclair for our schools alone. And she found a way to get back in town. She's not the only one, but there are other people who they leave. They're not considering coming back. They feel kicked out, left, kicked to the side, and you all can do something about that. We're all doing something about that together. Again, it's already done. It's these steps to now get you all on board fully, and we will be meeting to take care of this. Thank you.
In my building, there's another person who is going through the same thing like me, so it's going to be one more tenant out. And he's the father of two beautiful little girls. And he said, Alain, I need to talk to you. I don't know what I'm going to do. So I don't know much more than you do. I'm going to go to that meeting tonight and just try to voice my concerns about the lengths of this process. Wish me well. Thank you.
Good evening. Suzanne Atman, Montclair Environmental Commission. Should I give my address? Special privileges. I just wanted to briefly bring these documents to you. This is another story of getting kicked out of your home, but this is related to defecating in public spaces, and this is about Montclair's geese being kicked out of their homes. That's supposed to make you laugh. But we sent an email last night, so we wanted to also bring hard copies because we know how hard it is to track emails and get time to read them, and also made an executive summary of what we sent for those of you who want a shorter reading. So you have a longer reading and a shorter reading that I'm going to give you. But we really ask that you read this, take some time to read it, because we have shared ideas for how we can eliminate or minimize and eliminate goose droppings, but also adhere to humane protocols by the Humane Society and PETA and the Animal Protection League and humane protocols, just because it's the right thing to do. So I just would love to distribute this to. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for all your work.
That's the same thing we got by email, right?
Councilor Spiller?
Thank you. And can I just ask on that, I did see the 5-page, I believe, memo, right, it was 5-page. I did see the 5-page memo with some of those points. You talked about the executive summary. Are you highlighting in there that, there's this option, there's that option, but I took out of that, you're saying as long as the option doesn't include killing the geese, is that correct? Is that the assessment?
Yeah, that's what I took.
Can you go to the mic, please, just so.
Yeah, so the number one thing we're asking, the most important, and there's lots of great information in there, is that we formally agree as a community, or that you formally agree to prohibit killing, which is in the form of rounding them up, electrocuting or gassing them in the middle of the night. It happened here in 2007 and 2017, and part of the concern is that in 2013, I know there were residents who came forward asking for that to never happen again, and they were told, oh, it's not being considered. And then a couple of years later, it happened. It's unnecessary, it's inhumane, and it doesn't even achieve the goal that people want to achieve. I think part of the problem is that the vendor who who conducts this and gets paid for it, is given a lot of authority to make those decisions. But beyond that, yeah, so we're asking if we can pass a resolution that would never happen here again. A lot of, I think, residents want to hear that and deserve to just know that that's off the table. And it's not needed. There's so many other, we've brought a lot of new suggestions and longer-term suggestions like habitat modification. We now have a cleanup service that we can work with. And then current practices that the town has used in the past, which are still, should still be used. We're just asking that they be tweaked so that they're more humane. The way, the method is more humane with egg addling and dog chasing. So there's a lot of tools on the table. This year, just to speak to that really quickly, because I heard there was some concern about the population this year. The geese you see in the park now, the fall-winter geese, which is a different population from the spring-summer geese, they come every year. They're pond hoppers. You might see them when you're driving down the highway, driving around town. So they hop pond. So there's no way to deter them without killing all the geese on the Atlantic seaboard. Right? So they're always going to be here year after year. We can use dogs to chase them away. Ideally, with habitat modification, they'll see this as a least attractive place to live. But that's the case. The same numbers we see this year we saw in the past. The spring-summer geese, we piloted these Away with Geese lights in Edgemont Park this year. And as a result, there were a couple of nests that were built. So we were able to deter 80% of the nesting geese, and there were a couple of nests that were built still. But that's because we wanted to have a clean pilot. So what the township normally would do with egg addling or with dog hazing was halted. And so we ended up with more geese in the park this year. But that can easily, be adjusted for this year moving forward, and we got to learn a lot. So anyway, yes, if we can take that off the table, killing, that would be something we'd feel very strongly about and think the community would really appreciate.
So, because I know that the Environmental Commission is working with my council colleagues, I believe Councilman Schlager and Councilor Baskerville, on a lot of those ideas that you're talking about, which is great. So this is a separate and a part of just don't kill, no matter what all the other solutions are that people are working on.
Yes.
Okay.
We're bringing that forward as
Just
a
wanted to-
formal
okay.
ask to make it a resolution in the community.
Okay, great, thank you.
So I'd just like to thank you very much for taking your time to be a part of the joint meeting where Mayor Jackson, Councilwoman Schlager, and I met with you. So am I correct that this is not a part of the joint or the collaborative recommendation from that group? This is something separate? Because there was supposed to be a collaborative, and I thought Chair Aaliyah had something, and then you and the Chair Aaliyah were supposed to be, so that never happened.
So we left,
Okay.
so actually, that's what we're hoping for. We're hoping that you had this wonderful meeting and that you were going to, deliberate amongst yourselves, but that we were going to get together and keep having these talks till we all come to some kind of decision. And then where we didn't disagree, to come forward transparently with council and say, here's where we disagree, and then, ask you to make a decision around that. But we were told that that wasn't happening. I even sent an email.
Right, and
Yeah.
I got an email.
I never got a response.
Okay, so then we just have to, because what happened was after the meeting, I did get a email, and I thought it was a summary from the meeting, and I referred you to the person that said that didn't happen. Okay, so Councilwoman Schlager and I will be meeting or communicating with Director Steve Wood maybe tomorrow, as soon as tomorrow, and so we're going to hear, because he has some thoughts and suggestions as well. And so now I will need to, so is this representing the environmental,
Yeah.
or is this just your personal?
No.
Okay, so
We
this-
sent it to you from the environment.
Right, I saw that, but I couldn't figure out, because I was expecting that we were going to get one. That was the purpose of us collaborating.
No, we would love to have done
Okay.
that.
All right,
In
well,
fact,
we'll work that out. I
yeah.
just want to make sure. So when we meet, we'll have this document as well as the one that came from the meeting that Chair.
We were told to write our own statement to council. and send
We're
it.
good. I just wanted to be clear, because I think as early as tomorrow, Councilwoman? Yes.
Tomorrow would be fine.
Yeah.
Great.
And so after that, we will, certainly speak to Mayor Jackson, who was present and involved with that, and our other council colleagues, and have
Great.
some thoughts.
And is that going to happen at the next council meeting? Will there be like?
I don't want to say when that's going to happen, but.
I mean, it'll be a discussion at
Councilwoman
council.
Schlager and I hopefully will have communication as early as tomorrow, and we're trying to move this forward. We understand time is of essence. We understand that something happens with the geese around this time of year.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And in the document, we list recommendations for what can,
I saw
I'm sure
that.
Mr. Woods knows that, but we had some other ideas in there as well.
No, and I appreciate it, and thank you very much for taking your time.
Thank you.
Suzanne, I do have a question.
Yeah.
You mentioned that you were told to write a separate document.
Yeah.
Where did that come from?
So I reached out to Aaliyah, who's the chair of the
PRC.
committee. I reached out to her last week to see what she understood as next steps, just to make sure, to see if we were on the same page, because we were hoping we could have get back together and collaborate after the councilwomen talked. And she said, we're writing a formal letter to council, and you're supposed to write one too. And I texted her back and I said, I didn't know we were supposed to do that. Nobody told us that. And then I said, hey, how about instead of doing that, we get together and we finish talking about what we agree on, and then give that to council, and then say, here's where we disagree, here's why, and then, let you all decide that. And then I actually sent an email out to a whole bunch of people saying, I just want to clarify if this is true that we're supposed to send this letter. I think it would be better if we collaborated, and I didn't hear back from anybody. So that's why we sent this. We just said, okay, we'll just send this.
No,
And I'm glad we did, because honestly, Mr. Mayor, we as the commission have never been fully heard on this. And we're really glad to be part of it, just because now we represent, we're bringing in other perspectives of residents and people who see this issue in a different way.
Sure, I think I was more on the impression of the more collaborative approach that you referred to and Dr. Vasco referred to.
Yes.
Because I thought it was, again, coming together, then we'd have
Yes.
like a manifesto of all,
Right.
from these different groups, so. But the two of them will work it out. and-
Yes.
And Mr. Mayor, in reading that document, though, I'm encouraged that I think a lot of it still allowed for and asked for that collaborative process to take place. It was just, as I read it, that's why I asked for clarification, a bottom line of just don't kill. You know what I mean? Option, but don't kill. So hopefully that process still goes, because I look forward to hearing what we all thought was going to be collaborative.
And I just as a note, I mean, I agree with that just philosophically. However, I did want to be sensitive to what some of the representative from Yannickoff said.
Yes.
Which was that there are times when it becomes unbearable for them. They can't live in their yards, their
Right,
kids,
right in the yard.
and their pets are getting sick and so forth. So, if you remember that, she said if you had if you had that, there may be an occasion that may arise where and she was just talking about Yannickoff, and it was her main concern. But there you have it's not like at Edgemont where it's a public space. It's private yards that have the
Yep.
issue. And again, she talked about her kids and grandkids' health,
Yes.
pets' health, and things like that. If it
Dogs,
became something where it wasn't controllable, what do you do? So, again, I'm one who agrees with the non-kill as a philosophy. But I do think we need to at least listen and be sensitive to what some of those neighbors express as being like, and just a completely untenable situation sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to know more about that, because when, some people, when they say untenable, depends
I
how
know.
you see untenable. But I do think we have other tools like the goose poop, which I think was her biggest issue. And I think we could take a more active role with those residents who live there and offer them some tools like the Away with Geese lights.
Right.
I'm just concerned until we draw the line and take it off the table, it's always an option, and once it's an option, depending on who the power is at the moment, depending on who's making the decision, who yells the loudest, if that person gets upset and other people aren't upset because they're yelling the loudest, With the township, then those things happen, and they happen quietly behind the scenes, and nobody knows, right? And that's what happens. Residents find out afterwards. So I think, let's think about that situation and say, well, what else could we do?
Correct.
If killing didn't even exist, what would we do?
Right, I agree.
To that end, Mr. Mayor, if I could, I appreciate the comment, particularly that it's Yanacall, because I think there's only two parks, it's Edgemont and Yanacall, where this is an issue. So as the first ward counselor, I would hope to get more information. You and I have had several meetings over the last 8 years with residents at Edgemont and Yanacall. So I look to get more information and get up to speed on the meetings that have occurred so that I can help
Right.
my constituents, which is Yanacall. So,
Yeah,
thank
and
you.
just so you know, Janet, I'm actually meeting with her tomorrow because she's
good.
extremely keen on the habitat modification. That's something that we talked about
Sure.
around the pond, and she said she would love it, and now other people are getting involved and talking about funding it and getting volunteers, and so it's becoming this nice community project.
Yeah.
And that's a great, that will address a lot of the issues there.
No, then that's good to hear. I'm glad you're having that meeting. I didn't know about that, because this
Well, I'm
has
meeting
been...
at her house for coffee, yeah.
This has been an issue for, like I said, the last 8 years that we've been up
Yeah.
here. So we've been dealing with it quite a bit, and this is all new,
I know.
these new meetings. So if you
I
could
saw
keep me
you
in the
on some
loop.
emails from the past.
I appreciate it. Yes. Many.
One thing she did say to me after that meeting was, or I shouldn't say she, somebody said to me after this meeting we had recently that they felt awful that those geese had been killed. I think somebody who had pressured for it and was like horrified when she could see it from her window and was horrified watching it. I mean, it's awful. So
I'm sure it is,
I
absolutely.
think even those people want it off the table. They just need to know that we're going to commit to helping them.
And I appreciate the information you shared. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Nadia Christensen. I live at 22 St. Luke's Place. Somebody said earlier that there's kind of like the property taxes are stable in Montclair. Well, I don't know how that's true because I lived on St. Luke's Place for the last 12 years. And I live in town for 19 years. I raised my son here, who's first year college this year. And our rent has gone up $25 each year until 2 years ago when it went up $100. And we start all asking questions, what's happening? And the landlord gave us an explanation what the township raised my taxes like twice. And of course, I called the township and I checked for myself. And yes, they told me that was around $22,000. Now it's around $37,000, the property taxes. So he is, of course, raising our rent. So I don't know what that stable means, like when the property taxes jump almost 50%.
Well, there's a couple things. One is there is a reassessment. So I don't know whether or not the value of the property could have gone up tremendously because of a reassessment. Sorry?
No, it hasn't.
How do you know?
Because I live in that building for, I told you,
Did you look at the
years.
assessment record?
Like, what do you mean? Like, I know the quality of the building, we still have...
That's nothing to do with it. That's
No,
nothing
he
to do
was
with
asking a different
the
question.
issue is how much is the property assessed for? And so we had a reassessment of property values in town, and we were able to, and for some cases, if your property value goes up substantially versus other types of houses or other parts of houses in town, your value is going to go up, your property taxes are going to go up. But the rate of taxes in town have gone up on the municipal side no more than 2% in 2012, I think it was, no, 2013, 2014. That was because of Hurricane Sandy. We've had 2 years of zero increases, 3 years, this 2020 will be 3 years of zero increases. So for, other than an assessment basis, for a landlord to assert that taxes are driving up a rent is false.
Well, it's not false.
It is
You're doing
false.
it, like,
It is false. The tax record, the tax increases are what they've been. That's a fact.
That was the explanation we were given.
Well-
With the same building.
Doesn't matter.
I know my landlord fairly well. He comes into my deli, buys sandwiches there.
Mhm.
Right? And the last time I got the increase, I told you guys about $150 a month. You know, he came to the deli, buy a sandwich, and he thought, was just going to be like, oh, thank you, have a great day. No, I asked him about the rent. And he told me, the property taxes went up to $28,000 a year. Man, I'm good at quick math. There's 28 units. It's $1,000 a unit. Divided by 12 months, it's $80 a month. But that's a total property tax. So how much did it go up by? It's a fraction of that. So why did you have to beat me over the head with a $150 increase for one unit? Multiply that by 28 units. So it's cost plus. The property tax goes up a fraction, and you beat the tenants over the head. And then
I'm not
feeling the
that probably is very. I can't speak to it specifically, but I can say categorically that there is no way that the property taxes are not driving the rent increase. That is absolutely not the case.
This is a common, and I didn't want to interrupt, but I wanted to come and support you a little bit. This is a common drive back that you hear when you bring up this subject with your landlord or with municipal officials. Property taxes, we need to support the cost of the town and the town's expenses and so on and so forth.
Yeah, so now you know it's not true. It could be a reassessment that could cause it. My building is a co-op, and it was reassessed $3 million more one year, and everybody had to have an increase, tremendous increase we had. Then it was reassessed 10 years later or so, went down. It fluctuates. But don't ever let them tell you that we're increasing their taxes.
And I do understand some properties are going to go up and some are going to come down. So 0% is not zero for everybody. So I get that. So he might have had a little bit of an increase. But the point is that we're being beat over the head with this. Really what's happening here is we're riding a wave. The town is booming. Beautiful new buildings are being built in this town with huge rents, and people, and I mentioned this the last month that I was here, people that own buildings that are not new owners, that didn't just come in and buy, but have owned the building for years, like our landlord, is going to cash in on it at our expense. And that's why we're here to ask you to intervene on our behalf. And put a cap on this. Stop the bleeding before we have to leave.
I think now, like you mentioned, even the distribution of increase between the rental units is not equal. So mine was $100. I just heard he said $150. So my rent is due in August. I don't know if it's $150. I don't know what I'm gonna do. I've been in this town for 20 years. So if $150 go more, then I don't know how I'm going to stay. More than half of my income goes toward paying rent now. This is my home. I come from Bulgaria. This is my second home. I raised my son here, so I don't have other home. So, but this rent is really getting out of hand, and I don't know what to do. My son is a college student in New Jersey Institute of Technology. He's a commuter student. This is the place. This is our home, and I don't want to leave my home because, like, rents are just rampant. And I understand assessment, but I don't understand. In an assessment, I should see something new in that building that can justify that increase. Like the windows on the south side of the building are still since when the building was built. Even if you test, they're lead on the pane. So I'm telling you, it is not a building that just got an extreme makeover and it's like now the units cost like $5,000 a piece.
What's the address of your?
It's 22 St. Louis.
Mountain View, right?
Yes.
That's
yes,
the name.
Mountain View apartment. Still, he's trying to renovate here and there. But I just I went last week, my neighbor is telling me she had a big wet spot on the ceiling. Last year in October for 3 months, I dealt with water coming into my bedroom from outside the building. So it took the landlord 3 months to fix it. Things got fixed it. But it's not like a brand new building that justifies this increase. And it's not fair to us to pay that cost. So I'm really asking, this is an urgent issue, and I hope really for your help to just stop this nonsense. Thank you.
That's 22, let me just get clear, that's 2224, right?
Yes.
I just wanted to reiterate what the mayor and the council are saying. The tax rate increase has nothing to do with the assessed value. However, if you're having issues with your landlord the tenants organization can help you. But if you got leaking ceilings and things of that nature, you can call code enforcement, get an inspection. These buildings are regulated by the Department of Community Affairs. So there are things that you can do. You can also, as one of the gentlemen said, go to the city of Newark, to the landlord-tenant court and have a negotiation there. The landlord-tenant housing committee is happy to sit down with landlords and tenants to kind of mediate some of the issues, but you got to have your lease. You've also got to have evidence of the issues that are happening, but with regard to the tax rate and the assessed value of real estate, they're totally two different things. And unfortunately, when properties are assessed, the assessor doesn't always go inside to do a internal examination, and so that's where the tenant has to come forward and either file a complaint or request an inspection. But the mayor and the council were actually right with that. It just unfortunately doesn't have anything to do with the rent increase. But as we know, being a landlord is a business first. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing.
Seeing no one else, I will close the public comment period. Thank you for your comments. Madam Clerk?
Mr. Mayor, before the clerk?
Yes.
Just want to note this. Certainly, I just want to note to everyone who came forward today, we appreciate you coming forward, sharing your stories, sharing the urgency around this. I think you have heard from many up here that we certainly share those same concerns. We feel action needs to be taken. We have watched, although not serving in here since the time this has been an issue, as has been noted. We've only been here for the 8 years, as the mayor noted at the start of this meeting. But we have watched and seen and done our homework on this issue in terms of seeing that it has failed when it went to the public. We're aware of that. We have gone through our committees that exist now to try and empower people to take action and stop some of these drastic rent increases, initially with some success, and then not, quite frankly, nearly enough, right? We've seen how that has been end run as well. Given that, I know my colleagues up here, people like to do their homework. Yes, it's important for people to delegate, if you will, to others to find out some information, but I know each and every one of us has been out there doing our homework to make sure we're ready on this issue, to move on this issue, on an issue that, quite frankly, over the years has not been able to come forward with success, right? So we are looking at this from a path of how do we make sure we get something that is Montclair specific, that does address the components that we know need to be part of this, that does it in as rapid a manner as possible, but is also balanced in the sense of it can resist the criticism that we all noted and many speakers here said will be the natural pushback that does happen, right? And it is through that process, although while not quick enough by any means that needs to be, it is that homework and that diligence that allows us to be successful when we move forward with the action that needs to be taken. So I just want to also note that you are being heard. People are aware of this issue. We are pushing as fast as we can to make sure something happens around this. We look forward to the work of our committees and the housing and others to see what issues are put forward and how we can really incorporate that into whatever we are able to move forward as a group and hopefully get the number of votes needed to pass. So that's the process. That's where we are with it. That's why it's never as fast enough. I get it, and it's a challenge. But know that you're being heard. Know that it's not falling on deaf ears. Thank you for keeping to come forward. It's appreciated. It's important to hear those stories. And we look forward, I'm sure, to take some action. So thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Madam Clerk?
I'd like to introduce this bond ordinance providing for various capital improvements in and by the Township of Montclair in the County of Essex, New Jersey, appropriating $9,073,000, therefore, and authorizing the issuance of $8,623,000 bonds or notes of the Township to finance part of the cost thereof. And I wish to note for the record that the supplemental debt statement has been filed on this.
Thank you. I will move it.
Second.
Roll call.
Councilor Baskerville?
Yes.
Councilor Hurlock?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor McMahon?
Yes.
Councilor Russo?
Yes.
Councilor Schlager?
Yes.
Councilor Spiller?
Yes.
Mayor Jackson?
Yes.
The next one is a bond ordinance for the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees. Salary, didn't I think? Oh, I'm sorry. I'll repeat that. This is a salary ordinance for the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees, Local 2296, Council 52 for year 2020 through year 2026.
I'll move it again.
Second, can I just say? Yes,
discussion?
Manager, again, I want to get this straight. That's a 7-year contract? Is it?
7.
7. It's just, I got to congratulate you. I've never seen it anywhere in the state, and the council and you are to be, commended for this, and I think it's good for employees, taxpayers, the government, and the citizens, and, it's very good for Montclair. Thank you.
Agreed. Thank you.
Stability.
Roll call?
Councilor Baskerville?
Yes.
Councilor Hurlock?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor McMahon?
Yes.
Councilor Russo?
Yes.
Councilor Schlager?
Yes.
Councilor Spiller?
Yes.
Mayor Jackson?
Yes. We have a consent agenda for items 1 through 8. And any reason for pulling those items off the consent agenda for individual consideration?
Not today.
Okay, I will move them. Roll call?
Councilor Baskerville?
Yes.
Councilor Hurlock?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor McMahon?
Yes.
Councilor Russo?
Yes.
Councilor Schlager?
Yes.
Councilor Spiller?
Yes.
Mayor Jackson?
Yes.
Mayor, just a quick question. We just did AFSMI on the new business, but this is another AFSMI within that?
No, sir. Item 6 is a resolution. It's pro forma, and it authorizes me as the township manager to execute the agreement, the collective negotiations agreement that will be
Thank you.
Drafted pursuant to the terms of the memorandum of agreement that you
Authorized.
were presented with in executive session as a contract negotiation at our last meeting.
All right, thank you. That clarifies. Thank you. Sorry.
Item 9 is a resolution renewing our contract with Big Belly Solar for the provision of and servicing of 40 solar-powered sidewalk waste bins with automatic compaction and 150-gallon capacity, and the upgrade of all 70-powered sidewalk waste bin stations to include a hopper jam sensors and new side panels of the latest design, and I so move.
Second.
Discussion?
Quick question again. Manager, this means we've got 70 that are going to be upgraded, right?
Correct.
And 40 additional?
No.
Oh, wait, it's 40?
Right.
Oh, servicing of 40. Solar
It's
power.
we have 2 contracts right now, one for 30, one for 40. The 30 contract,
total.
the 30 bin contract, excuse me, the 40 bin contract expired in December of 2019. The 30 bin contract expires in December of 2022. Through the intrepid work of Mr. Karasik and Mr. Wood, the township was able to secure from Big Belly for the renewing of the 40-unit contract, a reduction by 22% per month of the cost for those units. So now all 70 will expire at the same time in December of 2022. Additionally, and I say additionally meaning in addition to that reduction in rate for the 40 units, the vendor will upgrade the technology as noted, as well as upgrade the what they call the skins or the outsides of all the units, not just the 40 in the contract.
So it's 70 total. That means you're going to pay less for getting more.
Well, you're paying less for getting the same.
But you're going to get more, you're going to get services, you're going to get more
You're getting better
sensors,
units,
better units. This
but
is
the same
terrific,
number.
terrific work again. I just want to praise you.
Well, I defer you to the gentleman across the
And
way.
Mr. Karasik.
Who worked very hard on this.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Stafford, just to ask them, so the ones we have now don't currently have the jam sensors?
Correct.
Okay. And I believe when they initially came in, correct me if I'm wrong, just so I know this, the whole point of us leasing these was that we will always get the latest models when we look to renew our leases, correct?
That is true.
Okay, great. So just making sure of that. Thank you.
Very good work. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor? I have a question for the manager, please. I've asked on several occasions, and I'm still waiting for an answer, trying to find out when Canterbury Park is going to get some appropriate trash receptacles, and I still haven't had that answered. Now, on this particular vote, this resolution, if they're paying less for the same number, might we be able to then get a few more and put them in the Canterbury Park and the South End District, where we've been waiting for a long time, and over on Pine Street, where we're really in need of appropriate trash receptacles.
The township has the right under this agreement to increase the amount when it deems it necessary.
Okay, and...
If I'm not
Yes,
mistaken, Dr. Baxter, I think, though, that Mr. Brandon was recommending the similar ones that are in
Porter?
Porter Park,
And,
right. Any of that would be great. Ideally, on Pine Street on the corner there, I think the Big Belly would really be an ideal fit for that. They also have some really amazing trash receptacles up in Yantica Park that are a different type where you can't take things out. So any of that would be good. So right now, for months, we're still dealing with those open air wire trash receptacles where any and everything runs in and out, rodents jump in and out. And so, can I get an idea, like when we can get something done?
Why don't I do this? Why don't I look into it, because I believe there was movement to that end, and I'll have that sent to you as promptly as possible.
Yes, sir. They did remove one from the triangle on Orange Road.
No, I was talking about the park.
Oh, so they're getting something. Okay, okay.
No, what I'm saying is I want to review it and make sure that my facts are accurate, and I'll have that information to you as soon as I can.
Okay, thank you. Can I have it before the next meeting?
I'll do everything I can to have it to you tomorrow.
Thank you very much, sir. Appreciate it.
I have a question, Mr. Stafford. The placement of the big bellies, so who deems that, like where they should be?
Generally speaking, Mr. Brandon makes that recommendation.
Okay. So once they're placed, can they be moved easily?
I don't believe that would be an issue. Yeah.
Okay. We have two in the park in Watchung Plaza, in the little park. There's a bench, and there's two right in front of the bench. So there was some concern from a couple of constituents that they sit and they look right at the receptacle, so I was hoping...
Oh, yeah, tell them to swing it on over to Canterbury.
Hey,
Rob, send it to Canterbury.
Okay, there's also two of them sitting side by side.
You'll take it there.
Which I thought was a little odd.
Roll it on over to Canterbury.
One double unit.
Is that what that is?
One is recycling and one is garbage.
And one is...
Oh, is that right? Oh, I didn't notice this, because I went to look at them, I didn't notice, okay.
Yeah, that's the only, that's
But if you
where
send me
it's
the specifics
recycling.
on what you're
Thank
talking
you.
about, I'll be happy to forward it to Mr. Brandon for him to review.
Terrific, thank you.
Roll call?
Councilor Baskerville?
Yes.
Councilor Hurlock?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor McMahon?
Yes.
Councilor Russo?
Yes.
Councilor Schlager?
Yes.
Councilor Spiller?
Yes.
Mayor Jackson?
Yes.
Okay. Yes, thank you, Mayor. Whereas invoices against the Township of Montclair in favor of the following persons for the amount set opposite their respective names have been received, duly audited, and found correct. Therefore, be it resolved by the Council of the Township of Montclair in the County of Essex that said invoices be and they are hereby ordered paid, and that checks be drawn by the Finance Department to the order of such persons for the amounts respectively, and thereafter stated on computer printout attached hereto and made a part hereof. This bill list is dated January 21st, 2020, for the amount of $9,792,442.77. And I so move.
Second?
Roll call?
Councilor Baskerville?
Yes.
Councilor Hurlock?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor McMahon?
Yes.
Councilor Russo?
Yes.
Councilor Schlager?
Yes.
Councilor Spiller?
Yes.
Mayor Jackson?
Yes.
Mayor Jackson.
Staff comments?
Can I-
Oh, okay.
Oh,
Okay.
before that.
Mr. Scanlonberg?
No comment.
Staff?
Nothing for me tonight, Mayor.
I just want to wish Councilor Baskerville a happy birthday.
Thank you very much.
Much more to wish Dr. Baskerville a happy birthday.
Thank you.
Second that.
All right, council members?
Yes, please. Mr. Mayor, with your permission, might we be able to hear from the county? I remember when last, I'm sorry, I don't remember his name.
Mr. Del Guardio.
Mr. Del Guardio. How are you?
Montclair resident.
Yes. When you were last here, I asked about the wall that's down by the Nishwain Hill or whatever. I was just wondering if you had any information to share. It does look like they're doing something.
Dear Mr. Mayor, Frank Delgaudio, Liaison, Essex County.
Yes, sir.
Dr. Baskerville, I did forward that information immediately following the meeting. I didn't have the opportunity to follow up with you, but that area wasn't in the county right-of-way. However, they are trying to expedite and get something done at that area because obviously the damage was extensive there. But it was not something that the county had originally constructed or is responsible for the maintenance on. So wherever the work is done, I know they had reached out to individuals who were responsible, and from what I understand, it's being repaired.
Okay, so can you help me with that a little bit, please? So does that mean it's a township's responsibility?
Typically, it would be a township. If it's not in the county right away, it would be a township right away, unless there's not a state road that over in that area either. So sometimes, it's a culvert, from what I understand, is where the damage is to the culvert wall. There are some that are not on county roadways, but it's in the county right of way near the high school and areas like that. So when they're hit by cars, they're repaired. But this one in particular is not in the right of way of Essex County.
Oh, okay, I appreciate that. I'm a little confused because a few years ago, like in '09 or thereabouts, when they were doing some work with the walls there, and up to that brick wall, the county was in charge, and then the county was also doing the walls on the other side. So I guess, I'm not sure if anything has changed in terms of what's now county and what's township, but I guess we can look into that, Mayor, and try to find out, because if it's a township, then I guess we need to try to figure out what the holdup is. You know the wall I'm talking about right there, yeah.
I
Okay.
will get the information back. I will send through the township manager the information that I was forwarded from the Public Works Department.
Okay, so they're not going to do anything, it would be up to us? I
Well,
just
it
want to see
depends.
what next steps would be for me.
Sometimes you're told that, and then the next day they go out and do a repair based on what it is. So I just need to get more detail on actually what's going on there at this time.
Please, whatever you find out, Mr. Delgaudio, send it to me, and if there's any work to be done or being done by the township, I'll relay that.
Okay.
But if you learn that your folks are doing something, please relay that, and I'll forward it to the group as well.
And I should be able to find out by tomorrow, right, if that's township property or county property, the wall, right? I mean,
Counselor, the culverts are complicated. I'll have to look into it because the county has responsibility for some culverts that even aren't on county roads, like on Forest Street, for example. So it may not be quite that simple. So I'll work with Mr. Stafford and we'll look into it.
Okay, so and somewhere, might it be written down, and you can look into it and then just send me an email tomorrow, the next day? Right there, it seems like you should have something in writing, whose property it is.
Well, listen, we're going to gut right on it and do our best. I just don't want to, I've seen this particular issue to be sometimes a little difficult to sort out, so I don't want to make any promises.
Okay, well, I'd like to have the information by Friday, please, and I'd like for you to include me on the correspondence that you're doing so that I know where we are in terms of getting the information. Thank you very much.
Counsel?
Thanks, Frank.
Thank you.
I did have one thing. If you recall, Mary Beth Rosenthal and Maziel are working on the
Yes.
dialogue piece that was followed up.
America.
And I think they're going to do it in March, begin the discussions, and they want to know if the township would be want to be listed as a sponsor of these discussions. I mean, I think it would be good, but it requires us to agree.
I agree.
How much are they asking for?
Right now, there's a financial contribution that's just being listed as a support.
Oh, okay, because I thought they were looking for financial assistance as well.
I didn't hear
You
that.
didn't
I
get
guess I'm
that.
sure they'll come
Okay.
back.
They do.
Look, maybe they started with me and figured to see how I responded, and then they'll come back to you.
So
I support it, even if they need financial.
I think it's well worth it.
Okay, so we'll communicate that to them.
do that to Mary Beth?
Yeah, I'll text her or something to them.
Mayor, I forgot to just mention, it was so impressive the last few days, seeing all the different events for remembering Dr. King's starting from the breakfast, which you spoke, and we were all there at the breakfast, and then there was a YMCA Day of Service Senator Gill was at, and I went to a event. Of course, we were all really there, Unitarian Universalist Congregation, a tremendous event. I went to Bloomfield, that's what I wanted to report to all of you. I went to Bloomfield where we had a nice minister, Rogers, from Congregation Church in Montclair. He was there in Bloomfield because the councilwoman who sponsors the event, Councilwoman Ortina Davis, first African-American woman on the Bloomfield Council, she attends his church in Montclair. So I was there to be supportive of him and to thank them. In Montclair, we have such a reach everywhere. People went to school here, they went to college at Montclair State, they always know the name Montclair. We're always a leader everywhere. So, touching off from Dr. King's life, it's just been a great day of service by a lot of people and a day of remembering, and so many programs I watched last night with President Kennedy and Martin Luther King working together, and then losing both Robert Kennedy and Dr. King. That 1968 is just such a time that it makes me so inspired to work with all of you to try to keep this dream. It's not just a dream, it's a reality that we have to make sure we achieve, and Montclair is a model for that. So just wanted to say that in the new year too. Good new year to everyone, 2020. Thank you.
But going back, piggybacking on that, it's amazing that Dr. King came to our
Yeah, he was at
town. They
Montclair. You
sent you all
said
that
that,
article
Montclair High School,
last
right?
night.
He was here at Montclair.
It's just incredible.
What year was that, 66?
1966, that he was here. It's just
Wonderful.
If you ever get a chance to go into the music room at the high school, there's steps where he stood, embedded into the floor.
Council, I was there.
You were there?
I was here at Union Baptist Church Sunday morning and at Montclair High School Sunday afternoon. Had opportunity to shake his hand as he was coming up the aisle. Yes, my grandmother was sitting on the end. I was sitting next, and as he was walking up his,
Tremendous.
So, yeah.
He's a liar. You're making it up. Yeah.
Well, we have a connection with him. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just real quick, the next First Ward meeting will be Monday, February 3rd, 7:30 to 9 at the Bellevue Avenue Library. We always have a great attendance. Looking forward to this again. And my honored guest will be Mr. Brian Scantlebury, our Deputy Township Manager. Appreciate him coming out and spending time with us. Looking forward to a good discussion. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Mine on the 28th.
Anyone else?
Yes, sir.
Good.
On the 28th, Tuesday, the 28th of this month, we're going to host a community meeting, and this meeting is very important. It's to discuss an issue that I know a lot of people in the township have concerns about. AT&T is looking to erect another antenna location, 65 feet with 7 antennas, and pretty much in an area that is residential, commercial residential, and in the South End business district, which is right by Residences. And so I'm encouraging anybody that wishes to be heard, either to come and support and talk about how wonderful it is, or to come and raise concerns and questions about the location of this massive antenna. Please to join us. That's Tuesday, the 28th. The meeting is going to start at 7 p.m. and we'll finish at 9. It's at the fire headquarters at 1 Pine Street, and parking will be comped through the township. I believe our attorney, Ira Karasik, will be there with us, and I haven't heard yet if the mayor's schedule will allow for it.
No, I said I have a freeholder budget meeting.
Okay.
I won't be able to.
All right. And so, yeah, this is a very important meeting, and I just want everybody to know, anybody that's living in and around the Cedar Avenue, Pleasant Avenue, Washington, anywhere near the South End Business District or has a business there, please come out, encourage your neighbors, because the last thing I want to do is for something to move forward and people to feel as though they didn't have a voice in this or that they didn't know. So we'll be sending out reminders. We have people that are going to be going door to door to the 200-foot radius area
But if you are listening to this and know people that might be interested, please share that. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Motion to adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. Please have some cake and